What's going on, my friends? Vader Shader here, and today we're going to go over the worst video games of 2023. That is, according to Metacritic. Let's get into it. This directly from Metacritic's website. We're going to check out the worst video games of 2023 by Josh Dietz. The link will be in the description below. A little bit of information before we go through. On this page, we rank the lowest scores games released on any platform between January 1st, 2023 and December 31st, 2023. Games are ranked by Metascore as of December 18th. Prior to rounding, and any titles with fewer than 7 reviews from professional critics are excluded. In other words, these bad games are all major enough to get reviews from multiple publications. If a single title would have landed on the list multiple times due to low scores on more than one platform, it looks like Metacritic only included the lowest scoring version. First up is number 10, Gargoyles Remastered, with a Metascore of 49. Generally unfavorable. Disney's 1995 Sega Genesis platformer Gargoyles, based on the cartoon series of the same name, got the remaster treatment in 2023. But unless you are a diehard fan of the IP, the new version has little to recommend it. A quote from Screen Rant shows, "Even those who enjoyed the show but never played the original game may have trouble immersing themselves in Gargoyles Remastered. Many of the changes made in Gargoyles Remastered are simply that, changes, and not necessarily improvements, leading to an overall disappointment for the potential this could have had." At number 9, we have Loop 8, Summer of the Gods, with a Metascore of 49, generally unfavorable. This game is an RPG set in an alternate reality version of rural 1980s Japan, which actually sounds like a good setting. Loop 8 finds your time-looping teenage protagonist battling a race of demons. A quote from Gaming Trend says, "The end result is a shallow, disjointed, and underdeveloped experience. Rather than reflecting the nuances of our everyday lives, Loop 8 most closely resembles the lives of aquarium fish." Okay, that's a good one. At number 8, we have Gangs of Sherwood with a Metascore of 48. A co-op action game set in Robin Hood's Sherwood Forest in which you play as one of the Merry Men. Not a bad idea for a video game, but one that is set in a dystopian steampunk sci-fi version of Sherwood Forest filled with far too easy boss fights and poor overall execution. That unfortunately is what Gangs of Sherwood turns out to be. A quote from the Jimquisition: "By selling Gangs of Sherwood, Nacon is robbing from the gullible and giving to the inept. I'd have worked on a better closing analogy, but this game isn't bloody worth it." Okay. At number 7, we have Hellboy Web of Word, with a Metascore of 47. The world still doesn't have a good Hellboy game, though it's slightly better than 2008's The Science of Evil. Beat-em-up roguelike Web of Word fails in its gameplay despite laudable visuals, the casting of the late Lance Reddick as Hellboy, and a clear respect for its source material. Note that the PC version scored 14 points higher than the console release, which still doesn't make it a good game, just a mediocre one. From PlayStation Lifestyle, between its sticky brawling mechanics, repetitive level design, and extremely low difficulty, Hellboy Web of Word simply feels like an unfinished game that was early on its journey to greatness. There's a heft to its combat, yet the controls aren't nearly snappy enough and it's too easy to be engaging. At number 6, we have Crime Boss Rockay City with a Metascore of 43. We're getting lower, guys. One of 2023's most publicized flops, new IP Rockay City wastes a well-known cast that includes Danny Trejo, Michael Madsen, Chuck Norris, Kim Basinger, Danny Glover, and Michael Rooker, among others. Wow, that's like a Hollywood movie right there, on what amounts to an inferior take on the Payday formula. In this case, others includes Vanilla Ice. Okay. The first-person heist shooter has you assemble 4 of their characters into a criminal gang that must complete a series of missions in a fictitious city that's basically 1980s or 90s Miami. But you'll find much better writing in any of the late 20th century action movies coming from Gaming Age, for all its faults, and it certainly has many. Nothing here is egregiously terrible, which means ultimately that Crime Boss' biggest sin isn't that it's a bad game, but rather a very boring one. I don't know about you guys, but I mean, with that cast and that theme, like a Payday formula, I don't know. Maybe I might have to check that one out. At number 5, we have Testament, The Order of High Human, with a Metascore of 41. Attempting to blend action-adventure gameplay with Metroidvania and RPG elements, the second release from indie studio Fairy Ship Games finds you in a fantastical realm plagued by an epidemic of madness, filled with everything from parkour to sword fighting to puzzle solving. Testament ultimately fails to make any of its components work well, according to reviewers. Simply put, Testament, The Order of High Human, is a bad game that isn't fun to play and doesn't really offer anything meaningful to its players, who are better left if they simply avoid it. This is from IGN Italia. At number 4, we got Quantum Era with a Metascore of 40. A sci-fi horror shooter hybrid set in outer space, Quantum Era puts you in the shoes of firefighter Jacob Thomas as he attempts to rescue survivors from a combination of zombies and terrorists, as well as fires. From Well Played, Quantum Era is a flawed, frustrating, and unfun slog that collapses under the weight of its lofty ambitions to blend multiple genres and mechanics on the limited budget and developing skill set. Coming in at number 3, we have Grey Hill Incident with a Metascore of 38. An alien invasion themed stealth survival horror game from new studio Refugium Games. Grey Hill Incident was a failure on almost every level, with critics noting poor acting, bland settings. Ultimately, Grey Hill Incident is a big disappointment. This had real potential to be a short but cool horror game that leverages tension and aliens in a way we haven't really seen in gaming. What we got instead is a flavorless game that feels like a concept from something much better. That's from comicbook.com. At number 2, we have Flashback II with a Metascore of 35. The 1992 Amiga game Flashback, later released for other platforms, was a much-loved Prince of Persia-like sci-fi platformer that was followed by a 1995 sequel under a different title, Fade to Black. This fall brought another sequel, more accurately a prequel to the now 31-year-old original, this time bearing the Flashback name, but absolutely none of its charm. From GameStar, the most pointless sequel since Duke Nukem Forever. Every single good idea is crushed by 5 bad ones. Now we're heading into number 1, the number 1 game according to Metacritic. The number 1 worst game of 2023 according to Metacritic is The Lord of the Rings Gollum, with a Metascore of 34. They have a whole section for this. Metacritic's official worst game of 2023. Metacritic's official worst game of 2023. Also the worst Lord of the Rings game adaptation in history. Stealth platformer Gollum attempts to deliver an original story for its title character that is set between the events of The Hobbit and The Fellowship of the Ring. Critics note that extensive knowledge of Tolkien's books is a prerequisite for enjoying the game, but that's just the least of Gollum's problems. Dull and tedious are words that reviewers have used again and again to describe gameplay. While the controls leave something to be desired, but the biggest flaw is the game's visuals, or maybe it's the many game-breaking bugs. At any rate, it's a complete package, completely terrible. What could have been Daedalic's chance to break into mainstream has ultimately backfired. A waste of a license, riddled with performance issues and just downright ugly gameplay. Gollum should be cast into any nearest fire, let alone a wasted trip to Mount Doom. Well, there you have it, guys. The worst games of 2023 according to Metacritic. What did you think of this list? Did you play any of these games? Do you disagree with some of these Metascores? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you all have a great day. Happy holidays, stay safe, and I'll see you on the next one.